This is the all-new Viofo T130 dash camera, and I'm genuinely excited to be testing this one because I've wanted to test a Viofo for a long time now. And luckily, the kind folks over at Viofo were nice enough to send me this pre-release unit here. And while it's not perfect, I did like this enough after just 5 days of testing it that I went and I took my Jeep over to Best Buy. I had them rip out my old ThinkWare dash camera that I had in here, and I had them do a permanent hardwire install of this one. This is a 3-channel dash camera, which means that it has a camera on the front, a camera for the interior of the car, and it has a jack right here for the cable that you run to the back of the car where you have the rear-facing camera. The forward-facing camera records at 2K, that's 1440 resolution, while the interior camera and the rear camera both record at 1080p. Now all the cameras are on swivels, so you can easily adjust them up and down, after you've got it installed on your windshield. Same with the interior camera and the rear camera. But the interior camera also has this neat little side swivel. And what this is useful for is, well, say that you get pulled over by the cops and you want to record what's going on over here by the window. Well, all you have to do is when the cop comes up, you just kind of swivel this over to the side, and now you can record yourself and the cop. Pretty neat little feature right there. So the dash camera also has a series of buttons on the front. They're all pretty self-explanatory. The most important one here is the incident button. Normally dash cameras do what's called loop recording. It just records as much as it can to the memory card, and once space is filled up, it will overwrite the oldest piece of footage. But in case you witness something that you really want permanently saved onto the SD card, something that will not get overwritten, then you press the incident button here. The T130 also has built-in GPS, so it does record your speed and your location, and it also has built-in Wi-Fi so that you can connect it to your phone. Up at the top here is the micro SD card slot, and I definitely do recommend that you get a 128 gigabyte SD card for this because, well, it's recording 3 channels of high-resolution video, so you're going to need a lot of storage. So the dash camera does come with one of these standard, 12-volt cigarette lighter cable power plug things, but this is not what you're going to want to use to power your Viofo T130. This is a high-end dash camera, and you should do a proper install. To do that, you're going to need to get the Viofo Hardwire Kit. It's about $15 on Amazon. You should go take this over to an installer, have them do a professional install. And what the Hardwire Kit gives you is not just a cleaner look in your car, but it also gives you the ability to do parking mode, because with just the standard 12-volt plug, parking mode will not work. So you have to have the Hardwire Kit to do parking mode. Additionally, the Hardwire Kit has a little box on it that has some circuitry, and this will cut power to the dash camera if your car battery voltage drops below a certain value. So on the little box, you can see there's little settings. You set how low you want to allow the car battery to drop, and at that point, it'll cut power. And I definitely recommend setting it to the maximum value, because as soon as the car battery drains at all from your dash camera, you want to cut power to it. One other accessory that I consider a must-have accessory in any dash camera is a polarizing filter. Now, this is the Viofo Polarizing Filter. It costs about $16. It's totally worth it. It has a little white line on the top. You line up that white line with the white line that's on the front-facing camera, and voila. And what the polarizing filter will do is it just cuts down glare on the windshield. Without this thing, there will be a tremendous amount of glare, especially on a sunny day. With the polarizing filter, a whole lot less glare. The T130 has a relatively low-profile design. It mounts to the windshield with a little plate up here. This is permanently stuck to your windshield, and then all you got to do is you just plug in your rear camera, if I can find the plug, and then you plug in your power cable to the other end, and then you just line it up, and this is always the tricky part, and voila, it is now in place. So, how good is the T130's video quality? Well, all this footage is as it came off of the camera without any post-processing. However, what you're seeing here on YouTube is actually 4th generation video, so it's not going to look as good as the original video on the camera's SD card. The video saved to the SD card was the 1st generation, then Final Cut Pro exported the 2nd generation copy, and then that was compressed for YouTube. That's now the 3rd generation copy, and then after uploading it to YouTube, YouTube recompressed it again, so 4th generation. It still looks good, but the original video does look a lot better. Like I said at the beginning, the front camera is 2K 1440 resolution, and yeah, I know some people might be disappointed that it's not 4K, but honestly, 2K on this camera, I mean, it's so sharp and clear that I really don't think you'd gain enough with 4K to justify the larger file sizes and possibly the poorer nighttime video quality. Signs and license plates are clear, and overall the video quality is very nice. I'll talk more about this later, but the T130 allows you to set the bit rate of your movie files. And I have it set to the maximum setting because, well, that yields the best video quality. At the maximum setting, these files are recorded at 28 megabits per second, which is a very acceptable data rate for a 2K dash camera. You know, there's minimal digital artifacting and license plates and signs. They're easy to read most of the time. The dynamic range is pretty typical of what you see in most dash cams these days, and the auto exposure does, I think, a better than average job of maintaining the proper exposure for the road, even when the sky gets very bright. One little thing I should point out is the timestamp in the bottom right corner. Well, it's clipped off the right side of the screen, but don't worry, this is a known issue in the pre-production firmware, and Viofo says they will have it fixed for the final release. The rear camera records at 1080p resolution, and it records it at about 12 megabits per second, which is a good data rate for a rear view camera. It's actually better quality than the front cameras on a lot of 1080p dash cameras. By the way, the dark fuzzy lines you see going across the bottom half of the screen, that's not a problem with the camera. It's actually the defrosting wires in my window glass. When I attached the camera to the window, I didn't do a very good job of working around those wires, so sorry. The interior camera is also 1080p video. However, it's only recorded at 9 megabits per second, which is actually really low for HD video, but since it's only recording the car interior where there isn't much motion, it actually works just fine. The color, however, is just plain bad. The best way to describe the color coming off of the interior camera is jaundice sepia tone. Skin tones look very yellow, and sometimes it appears there's a greenish tint to things, or sometimes a magenta tint. It may be that the auto white balancing is struggling, but once again, we're not shooting a Hollywood movie here. What's important is that the camera's nice wide-angle lens is capable of capturing the entire interior of even a large vehicle like this Grand Cherokee. The interior camera also has an infrared emitter, so you can still see what's going on at night. And the light from this emitter, it's infrared, so it's totally invisible to the human eye, so you can't see it at all when you're driving, but the camera sensor picks it up really nicely. And even the back seat is reasonably well lit. I'll be honest, I have found the exterior nighttime recordings to be a little underwhelming in the T130. When you're not moving, everything looks good. You can read signs and license plates, and it still looks like 2K video. But as soon as you start moving, things tend to get, well, they get rather blurry and grainy. License plates, street signs, they all become almost impossible to read. And the rear camera especially seems extremely grainy with a high amount of ISO gain noise. All dash cameras struggle at night. That's just kind of a fact of nature. They have tiny lenses, tiny sensors, so it's usually hard to make out details on these, but it seems to just be a little bit worse than normal with the T130. Now, I do have the polarizing filter on the front camera, which technically should make things worse at night, but in my tests on other dash cameras, having the polarizer on or off usually makes no significant difference. The final thing that I'll mention about the T130's recording quality is the audio. There is a microphone toggle on and off switch, and the microphone in this dash cam does do a good job of picking up conversations inside the car. This is a test of the microphone. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. This is a test of the microphone. The audio does get recorded to all 3 channels, so the front recording, the interior recording, and the rear recording will all have the audio on it. Now, since the T130 does not have a built-in screen, it means that you have to use the Viofo app on your phone in order to connect to the camera and set it up. The Viofo app, it's a pretty decent app for a dash camera. You know, it's not the best, but it's also not the worst. I'd put it somewhere in the middle. Overall, I like it, but it does have some quirks. And the first quirk is how it actually connects to the dash camera. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to hold down the Wi-Fi button on the camera.
Wi-Fi enabled.
Okay, so now the Wi-Fi is turned on. And this is a little bit strange because all of the other dash cameras I've tested that have Wi-Fi, Well, the Wi-Fi is always on. You don't have to manually turn it on, but this one you do. Once you've turned it on,
3 channels started.
okay, once you've got it turned on, then you have to actually manually connect to that Wi-Fi network because it will not connect on its own. So you have to go into your phone's Wi-Fi settings, look for the Viofo Wi-Fi network, you connect to it. Wi-Fi connected, and now we're good to go. Okay, so now we can hit connect camera. It says searching for camera. And we are in. Okay, so it shows us at the top immediately a live view of the front camera. If we tap the switch camera button, it'll now show us the interior camera. If I tap it again, it now goes to the rear view camera. And if I tap it again, it now shows all 3 cameras at the same time. Now here's the second little quirk. Suppose we want to go into the settings. If we try it, it says please stop recording before doing other operations. Well, why doesn't it just do that automatically? Every other dash camera I've ever used, when you go into a mode where it has to stop recording, it just simply stops recording. It doesn't make you do it manually. This one makes you manually stop recording. Now we can go into settings. Okay, now here's where things get really, really good. And this is actually my favorite part of the whole dash camera. And that is the ridiculous amount of customizing and all the options that this thing gives you. This is way more customizable and has way more options than any other dash camera that I have ever tested. And we're not going to go through every single one of these options because there are a million of them, but I'll talk about some of the key ones here. First of all, you can set how long you want each video clip to be. So dash cameras normally record in 1-minute clips, but you can set it to be up to 10 minutes. I'm leaving mine at 1 minute there. You can tell it, recording audio and all this stuff. Wide dynamic range, WDR. So what WDR is, and also this was off by default, but this should be turned on. This just gives you a better dynamic range in the video so that your bright areas don't get blown out and your shadows don't get crushed too much. So turn WDR on. You can also set independently the impact detection, the G sensor, for when your car is moving and when it's parked. And this is great because a lot of other dash cameras, well, they'll let you set the sensitivity of the impact detection, but they don't let you set it independently. And that's weird because when you're driving, you kind of want low sensitivity because you don't want it triggering every time you hit a pothole. But when it's parked, you want it to be very sensitive because you want it to trigger if anybody so much as even touches your car. And luckily in here, it does let you set that separately as well. Now, before I mention that you can set the bit rate, here's where you do that. By default, it was set to high, but you should definitely go in and set it to maximum because you want the video to be the highest quality possible. All right, let's see what else we can set here. The infrared LED on the camera for recording the interior. I have it set to auto because I want it to record just normal footage during the day, and then I want it to switch to infrared mode at night. So you can set it to auto, or you can configure it how you like it. Here's a great feature, parking mode. This gives us so much control in parking mode. So it ends up, parking mode has a bunch of different modes, right? You can just have it look for motion detection, so it'll start recording if somebody walks in front of one of the cameras. You can have impact detection, which is actually always on, so if anybody bumps into your car while it's parked, it'll record. Or you can also do a continuous time lapse. So I like this because this means it's always recording, but it's not loading up the memory card and just draining my car battery. I do a 2 frames per second time lapse, and you can set how long you want it to do that. I have it set to 3 hours. Like I say, the Hardwire Kit circuitry, if your car battery gets too low, it will automatically cut power to the dash camera before that 3-hour time period is up, should you be running low on battery. So I love how much that you can customize the parking mode on this camera. And here's another wonderful feature that I don't think I've ever seen on another dash camera, and that is camera model stamp. So pretty much every other dash camera in the world will have their logo emblazoned on every frame of all your footage, right? So Garmin will say Garmin somewhere there. Thinkware says Thinkware. The Viofo lets you turn that off. So I have it turned off. You didn't see a Viofo logo anywhere in all of the sample footage because I have it off. And I think that's a fantastic feature. Everybody should let you do that. And down here, just the SD card formatting options and all that. Now, the one feature that it doesn't have that absolutely shocks me is the ability to update the camera's firmware from the app. I'm pretty sure that every other dash camera I've tested has allowed me to update the firmware directly from the app, especially any high-end dash camera like this one. So it's a little shocking that in this camera they make you do it manually, which is download the files from your computer, put it on the SD card, put the SD card in there, and so on. It's a very manual process. The app won't even notify you if there is a firmware update, so you just kind of have to know that there's a new version to go get. So that's a little bit surprising, and I'm hoping that maybe in the future they will take care of that. The one other option that I do wish they would add is a feature to turn off the interior camera, or at least to set it so that it only records in parking mode. Because frankly, I don't need it recording me full time. There's really nothing in here to see, and it's just using up space on the SD card. But I do want it recording the interior of the car when the car is parked. That's really useful. So I'm hoping that maybe they would add that feature in the future, because I think that would be a great feature to have. All right, now if we back out of here, we can review our footage that the camera has recorded. And like I say, it records, tons of little clips. And here's one of the things that I don't like about how this app works. Half the dash cameras I've tested work this way, where all it does is it just shows you a humongous list of all these little tiny 1-minute clips. I mean, there's going to be hundreds of them, right? And these are the loop files. You have the locked files here. These are all the ones that either impact set it off, or you press the button up there to record an incident, and then all the parking files, same deal. All these tiny little clips. The other way to do this, and the way, say, Garmin does it, is that it groups all of these little individual files into drives. So say you start your car and you drive to a friend's house 20 minutes away. Well, instead of having 20 little 1-minute files, and by the way, in this configuration with 3 cameras, it's going to be 60 1-minute files. But what these other cameras do is it'll just group those all together. It's smart about it, and it'll just say, here's this drive, and it started on whatever date, whatever time. And it lets you see those as drives instead of individual clips. It just makes it a whole lot easier to find footage that you're looking for, and it just organizes it better. On the SD card, it'll still just be a giant list of files, but in the app, it shows them by drive. So I do wish that that was the case here, because trying to sort through a million different files to find something that happened can be challenging, especially if you did not remember to press the incident button to have it stored to the permanent storage. Anyway, all right, so if we go to all files here, let's look at something from the other day. It takes a while to queue up sometimes, but it's not horrible. You just got to wait and wait. It is slow Wi-Fi. And there it is. So now we see the footage, and it queues up some more. So this is one of the problems that I've had with this thing, is that it does not play back particularly steady. And a lot of that may have to do with the fact that I'm recording the high bitrate files, so they are bigger, but still, it should be able to handle the bitrate. But it doesn't. But if we do want to download the file, we can just press that download button, and then it will download. So this one clip here is 400 megabytes. It's obviously going to take a very long time to download. All these cameras, when you download off the SD card to your phone, it always takes forever. It's always better just to pop the SD card out and go to a computer. But if you're out in the field and there's cops there and you're at an accident site, this is how you're going to have to get it off there. It takes forever. And unfortunately, there's no way to trim these clips either. So say you just need a 10-second part of this file. There's no way to trim that down. You have to download the whole thing. And you can obviously also delete it. So that's how you access the files. Overall, it is a good app. I just wish that they would have a more streamlined approach to connecting the camera, and the ability to download firmware updates and to see all these files grouped as drives instead of individual files. So like I said at the beginning, this is a pre-production unit that they sent me right here, and they would not tell me the retail price of the camera. So I don't actually know what this thing costs. Obviously the price is probably available by the time you're seeing this video, but I'm going to guess that with a 128 gigabyte SD card, with the polarizing filter, and with the Hardwire install kit, you're probably looking at about $300. That's my guess, but once I find out the actual price, I will put it below. It's not a perfect dash camera, but like I say, it is the best dash camera that I have tested to date, and it's the only one that has made me want to replace the ThinkWare dash camera that I used to have in here. So this is now my permanent full-time dash camera in the Jeep. I'm very happy with it. It has worked flawlessly. I tested this through August and September here in Texas. It's been about 100 degrees out. I've parked this in the heat. It is not overheated. It basically works perfectly. So I am very, very happy with it. If you have any questions, you have any comments, please leave them below. And as always, thanks for watching.